Hello, David the Custodian here. Today I want to talk about some more Star Trek. In this instance, I want to talk about the best of the TV series. I'm not, to be clear, talking about any of the more modern series. I think they need to wrap up before you can make a good judgment of their overall quality. Uh, there's still more new Trek coming out. Even Discovery hasn't wrapped yet, so we're gonna leave those out and just focus on pretty much Enterprise and earlier. Uh, so I'm gonna do my top five, starting at number five, going to number one, my favorite series of uh, the older series, the ones I grew up with, sort of. All right, so number five out of those series is probably unsurprising to most people, and that is Enterprise. Now, Enterprise had a really interesting premise. What was the Federation like before the Federation? When it was just humans first dipping their toes into the galaxy. What was this all about? It really had a very good premise, but the execution left a little to be desired. Definitely, um, depending on who you ask, some seasons are better than others. Most universally say that the final season was the best season, and I would agree with that. The first season was a little lackluster. Um, Opinions are a little mixed on the uh, the story arc of the Xindi War. I personally, I think the arc is a good idea. I don't like how Captain Archer uh, is portrayed during that series. He's very angry and snappish, and it kind of goes against the character that's already been established for Captain Archer. Um, so I don't care for that part of it. The war and stuff, that's interesting, but there's the mixed opinions about this series is why it's kind of firmly in number five there. Number four, well, that's a hard one for me. Um, I I'm either going to be blasphemous or I'm going to uh, be frowned upon by the fans of a certain show. I'm going to choose to be blasphemous. My number four is actually the original series. Now, the original series is what it is. It's the uh, foundational, important kind of thing for all of Star Trek. But um, with the, it hasn't aged well. Put it that way. It hasn't aged well. There's a lot of stuff in it that's just cringy when you watch it today as a modern viewer. Rampant kind of there's a lot of sexism and a lot of odd things in there that's just kind of like it's cringy today. But you can't fault Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry and the original series producers, they did their best with what they had, but I think it kind of falls short story wise than the top three entries, so it's at number four. Number three is Star Trek Voyager. Now, I wasn't sure if I was going to put Voyager at three or four. It has a very good long run, various storylines, um, story arcs that are interesting. There's some that are hits and some that are misses. But while it's a good show and it's one of it's one of my favorite shows of all time, it just doesn't quite hit the top two spot. It struggled a lot with characters that are were introduced that were supposed to be something better than they were and were taken out. There's lots of narrative decisions that are confusing, really, to rewatch. But yeah, overall, not a bad series. I like a lot of the characters. Tuvok is my favorite from that series. Uh, but moving on to number two. Now, my number two is going to upset a lot of people because number two is Star Trek The Next Generation. And why it'll upset people is because it's at number two. Star Trek The Next Generation was just fantastic. There was 7 seasons of stories, of interesting people, interesting places. Um, I would say the first 2 or 3 seasons kind of fell a little flat, especially with a lot of the episodes being kind of direct tie-ins. Like they with the original series, they took a lot of these stories from the original series and just updated them. Uh, and it's what was there was the Naked Now, that one. Uh, I think that was the Naked Time. There was a couple, in the original series. I may have got those backwards, but they're pretty much the same episode with slightly different, uh, slightly different locations. But yeah, it's the same thing. So the first 3 seasons kind of fall flat. They hit their stride really towards the end of the third season into the fourth season, and it was generally pretty good from that point. As with all shows, there's stinkers and there's good ones, but I would say that's a solid number two. If you haven't already guessed, my number one is Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I picked Deep Space Nine because of the story. Really, it's the story. Deep Space Nine being as it's really at a static location. There isn't a lot of moving around and adventuring and whatnot as you find in the other series. But what there is a solid cast moving through telling their story. So because they have this solid static place that they are located, there's lots of time to develop these deep, interesting storylines. And you get to know all of these characters really well, from Commander Captain Sisko to Quark the bartender. These characters are just some of the best that you find in any Star Trek series. Worf, honestly, is better in Deep Space Nine than in Next Generation because his character is developed much better. He's not this one-dimensional, grumpy Klingon security officer. He has lots of things to do. He falls in love. He gets married. Um, he fights with the Klingons. He fights for the Klingons. He does all these things, and it is glorious. In the end, you feel sad when Odo leaves forever. You feel happy for Nog when he gets into Starfleet. You feel great about most things in the show are pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there. Of course, there's moments that it kind of makes kind of lets down the side as well. Um, all you have to do is say Dax, and most people understand immediately. Oof, that was that was not fun, and I'm still sore at the production people for alienating alienating uh, the actress and driving her away. So we lost our Jadzia, but Esri was nice. She gets a lot of hate, but it's mainly because she's just not Jadzia. That's fine. But yeah, really good, and that's my favorite um, Star Trek show of all time. Let me know how wrong I am in the comments. Please keep it civil, and I will see you next time.